She was the weakest Omega in the room, unable to shift, mocked by everyone. Then the Alpha King stood and declared she would be his Luna. The court erupted in laughter and rage. What none of them knew, the powerless girl he chose carried the moon goddess's mark, and when it finally awakened, they would all kneel. The crystal chandeliers rattled as another wave of laughter swept through the grand hall. Alara pressed herself harder against the stone pillar, wishing she could disappear into its cold surface. "Did you see her trip over her own feet?" Someone whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear. "How is she even allowed at the moon gathering?" Alara's fingers trembled as she clutched the empty serving tray. She wasn't allowed anywhere. Her brother, Beta Marcus of the Riverbend Pack, had dragged her here as his personal servant, a final humiliation before he sold her off to the mining colonies next week. At 22, she should have shifted years ago. Instead, she remained trapped in her weak human form, the Pack's greatest shame. The moon gathering was the event of the year, where every major pack in North America sent their strongest wolves. The ballroom glittered with power, alphas in tailored suits, their mates dripping in diamonds, warriors whose eyes glowed with barely contained wolf energy. And then there was Alara, drowning in a borrowed gray dress that hung off her thin frame. "Omega trash," her brother had snarled before shoving her toward the kitchen entrance. "Stay out of sight. If you embarrass me in front of the Alpha King, I'll make you regret being born." She'd done her best. Stayed invisible. Kept her head down. But somehow, invisibility was impossible tonight. The room suddenly fell silent. Alara's head snapped up. The crowd had parted like the Red Sea, creating a direct pathway from the throne at the far end of the hall straight to her.
No.
Not to her. She was hidden behind the pillar. They couldn't possibly.
You.
Behind the column. The voice was deep, commanding, and carried the weight of absolute authority. Every wolf in the room felt it in their bones. Alara's knees nearly buckled. Alpha King Kale stood from his throne, his 6'4" frame radiating raw dominance. He was legendary, the youngest Alpha King in history, the strongest warrior the Packs had seen in generations. Dark hair, sharp jawline, intense gray eyes that seemed to see through walls. He'd united the fractured Packs of the Eastern Territories and crushed 3 rebellions before his 28th birthday. And he was staring directly at her hiding spot. "Step forward." Alara's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Her legs wouldn't move. Around her, wolves began to murmur in confusion. Who was the king addressing? "I said, step forward." Kale's voice dropped to a growl that made every wolf in the room bare their neck in submission. Her brother appeared at her side, his face pale. "What did you do?" he hissed, gripping her arm hard enough to bruise. "What the hell did you?" "Bring her to me." It wasn't a request. Marcus's hand tightened painfully on her arm as he dragged her into the open. Alara stumbled, nearly falling, and the crowd gasped. Whispers erupted like wildfire. "That's the Riverbend Omega, the one who can't shift. Why would the king want her?" Alara kept her eyes on the marble floor as Marcus shoved her forward. Each step felt like walking to her execution. The crowd pressed closer, their shock and curiosity suffocating. She could smell their judgment, thick and acrid in the air. When they reached the throne, Marcus forced her to her knees. "Your Majesty, I apologize for whatever offense she's." "Leave." Marcus's mouth snapped shut. He glanced between Alara and the king, confusion warring with fear on his face. "But, Your Majesty, she's my—" "I don't recall stuttering." Beta Marcus, Kale's gray eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface.
"Leave. Now."
Marcus retreated, but Alara could feel his fury burning into her back. She was alone, kneeling before the most powerful alpha in North America. Her mind raced through every possible reason he might have singled her out, and none of them were good. Had she broken some protocol? Offended someone important? Was this some new form of public punishment her brother had arranged? "Look at me." Alara's breath caught. Slowly, painfully, she raised her eyes. Kale stood directly in front of her now, close enough that she could see the silver threads in his dark suit, smell the pine and winter storm scent that clung to him. His face was unreadable, but his gaze, it wasn't cruel. It was searching, analyzing, like he was seeing something no one else could. The entire hall held its breath. Then Kale turned to face the crowd, his voice ringing out clear and absolute. I need a Luna. You need strong children. Confusion rippled through the room. Several alphas exchanged glances. The king's council members leaned forward from their seats, alarmed. Kale continued, his tone brooking no argument. The moon goddess has shown me my mate. My Luna, the mother of the next generation of kings. He extended his hand toward Alara. This Omega will be my queen. The hall exploded. Shouts of outrage mixed with shocked gasps. A female alpha in the front row actually laughed out loud. Someone shouted, "This is madness." Another voice, "She can't even shift." Alara's vision tunneled. This couldn't be happening. It was impossible. She was nobody.
Weak.
Broken. There had to be a mistake. Her brother's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Your Majesty, with all due respect, my sister is unfit for any such honor. Marcus's face was red with barely controlled rage, his carefully laid plans crumbling before his eyes. She's worthless. I was planning to send her to the labor camps next week. Surely you meant to choose from one of the eligible alpha daughters. I chose exactly who I meant to choose. Kale's hand remained extended toward Alara, steady and sure. Stand up. Alara's body moved before her mind could catch up. Her legs shook as she rose, her hand hovering uncertainly near his. When her fingers touched his palm, electricity shot through her entire body. Kale's eyes flashed gold again, and for just a second, Alara felt something stir deep inside her, something that had been dormant her entire life. Something wild and ancient and awake. Kale's fingers closed around hers, warm and solid. From this moment forward, he declared to the stunned assembly, "She is under my protection. Anyone who harms her, insults her, or questions her place at my side will answer to me personally. The mating ceremony will take place at the next full moon." He pulled Alara closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "Trust me, your life is about to change in ways you cannot imagine." Before she could respond, before she could process any of this, Kale turned and led her toward the throne room's private exit. The crowd parted again, but this time their silence was heavy with shock and barely concealed hostility. As they passed her brother, Alara caught sight of his face. Marcus's expression promised murder. All his plans to profit from selling her were destroyed. And judging by the way his hand clenched at his side, he would make her pay for it. The heavy doors closed behind them, muffling the erupting chaos in the hall. Alara stood in the quiet corridor, her hand still in the Alpha King's, her entire world shattered and reformed in the space of 5 minutes.
Why?
The word escaped her lips before she could stop it. Why me? Kale released her hand and turned to face her fully. In the torchlight, his features seemed sharper, more predatory. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made her wolf, the one she didn't even know she had, stir in recognition. Because, little Omega, you are far more than you appear to be. And when the time comes, you will save us all. Then he walked away, leaving Alara alone with more questions than answers, and the terrifying certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. Alara had never seen the inside of the royal wing before. The corridors were lined with portraits of past Alpha Kings, their painted eyes following her as guards escorted her through the maze of marble and gold. She'd been given a room, a suite, actually, larger than her entire childhood home. Silk sheets, a fireplace, windows overlooking the royal gardens. It felt like a beautiful cage. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the hatred in her brother's face, heard the mocking laughter of the crowd. And underneath it all, that strange sensation when Kale had taken her hand, like something buried deep inside her had cracked open just enough to let light through. At dawn, a sharp knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Miss Alara, a stern-faced woman in formal attire, stood at the door. "The council has convened an emergency session. The king has requested your presence." Requested. That was a polite way of saying she had no choice. 20 minutes later, Alara stood outside massive oak doors, her palms sweating. She could hear raised voices from within, angry, authoritative voices that made her instinct scream to run. The doors swung open. The council chamber was circular, with 12 high-backed chairs arranged in a semicircle. 11 were occupied by the most powerful wolves in the kingdom, alphas, military commanders, ancient pack leaders whose authority dated back generations. Their combined dominance pressed down on Alara like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. And at the center, standing rather than sitting, was Kale. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His jaw was tight, his posture radiating barely controlled fury. When his eyes found Alara, something flickered in them. Concern, maybe, but it vanished quickly. The Omega arrives," the voice came from a silver-haired man in the largest chair. "Elder Thorn," Kale had called him last night. "How convenient. Now we can discuss this disaster with the source of it present." Alara flinched. A female guard gestured sharply, and she stumbled forward, taking a position near the wall. Away from Kale. Alone. "Disaster?" Kale's voice was dangerously soft. "Choose your words carefully, Elder. What else would you call it?" Another council member, a broad-shouldered alpha with a scar across his face, slammed his fist on the armrest. "You've humiliated every eligible alpha daughter in the kingdom. The Moonstone Pack has already withdrawn their trade agreement. The Ironwood Pack is threatening to break their alliance. All because you chose some defective Omega over their daughters." The word defective hit Alara like a slap. She'd heard it her whole life, but somehow, in this room, surrounded by power, it cut deeper. "Commander Brass," Kale's eyes flashed gold. "I suggest you remember who you're speaking about. That defective Omega is your future Luna. You will address her with respect, or you'll find yourself removed from this council permanently." Brass's face reddened, but he sat back, seething. Elder Thorn stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "Kale, we understand you're young. I'm 28. I've been ruling for 6 years. I'm not a child. Then stop acting like one." Thorn's composure cracked. "This isn't about what you want. This is about the kingdom. We need alliances. We need strong bloodlines. I know what we need," Kale's voice cut through the room like ice. "And I know what the Moon Goddess has shown me." The Moon Goddess, a woman with sharp features, Lady Seraphine, one of the oldest pack leaders, laughed bitterly. "You're gambling our entire future on a vision? On some supposed divine sign about a girl who can't even shift?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. Alara's nails dug into her palms. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the stone walls. Every word confirmed what she'd feared. This wasn't protection. This was politics. She was a pawn in some game she didn't understand, and everyone in this room knew she didn't belong. "My visions have never been wrong," Kale said quietly. Too quietly. "They warned me about the Black Fang Rebellion, about the assassination attempt at the spring equinox, about the Kumbanien excusas." Brass interrupted. "But even if your visions are real, they don't change facts. Look at her." He gestured toward Alara, with barely concealed disgust.
"She's weak.
Fragile. Human, for all practical purposes. What happens when rival packs see our king bound to someone so powerless? They'll see it as weakness. They'll attack." Alara's chest tightened. She wasn't just unwanted. She was dangerous to them. A liability. Elder Thorn moved closer to Kale, lowering his voice, but not enough that Alara couldn't hear. "Listen to me, boy. I've known you since you were a pup. Your father trusted me, and you should too. This girl might be sweet. She might even be innocent, but she will destroy everything we've built. The packs are already calling you mad, questioning your judgment. How long before they question your right to rule? Let them question, Kale's jaw clenched. My decision stands. Then you're a fool, Lady Seraphine stood, her expensive jewelry catching the light. The Silvercrest pack has a daughter, Alpha-born, educated, powerful. She could unite the Northern and Southern territories. Or the Ravenclaw Alpha's niece, a warrior who's won 3 consecutive tournament championships. Either would strengthen our position immeasurably. She glanced at Alara with thinly veiled contempt. Instead, you choose
That.
a girl who brings us nothing but shame and instability. The room fell silent, waiting for Kale's response. He walked slowly toward Alara. The council members tensed, uncertain. When he reached her, he turned to face them, positioning himself slightly in front of her. It was subtle, but the message was clear. They'd have to go through him to reach her. You want to know what she brings us? Kale's voice was steel. She brings exactly what the moon goddess intended. And until you can see what I see, until you understand what's coming, you'll have to trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust. Brass stood, his wolf rising to the surface. You're asking us to trust you with our lives, our families, our entire way of life. Based on what?
Some feeling?
Some mysterious prophecy you won't even explain? Yes. The single word hung in the air like a challenge. Elder Thorne's expression hardened. Then we have a problem, Your Majesty. Because this council has the authority to declare a vote of no confidence. To question a king's fitness to rule when his decisions threaten the kingdom's survival. Alara's blood ran cold. They were threatening him. Because of her. Are you threatening a coup, Elder? Kale's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. I'm reminding you of the law. Thorne didn't back down. You have until the full moon to reconsider. Marry someone suitable, someone who can actually help this kingdom, or face the consequences. The council will reconvene in 3 days to discuss alternatives. The threat was clear. Marry someone else, or they'd find a way to remove him from power. Kale's hand clenched at his side, but his voice remained steady. This meeting is over. Get out. All of you. One by one, the council members filed out, their expressions ranging from smug satisfaction to genuine concern. Lady Seraphine paused at the door, looking back at Alara with something almost like pity. Poor girl, she murmured, caught in the middle of a war she doesn't even understand. Then she was gone, and Alara was alone with Kale in the massive chamber. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence pressed down on Alara until she couldn't bear it anymore. You should listen to them, her voice came out barely above a whisper. They're right. I'm nothing. I'll ruin everything for you. Kale turned to look at her, and for the first time, she saw exhaustion in his eyes. But also something else. Determination.
Certainty.
You're wrong, he said simply.
They just can't see it yet.
Neither can you. See what? I can't shift. I have no power. No connections. No. You have everything that matters. Kale stepped closer. And when your true nature awakens, they'll all understand. But until then. He paused, and Alara saw the weight of his position settle on his shoulders. Until then, little Omega, we're both prisoners. Me of duty and destiny. You of circumstances you never asked for. His expression softened slightly. I'm sorry you're caught in this. But I can't let you go.
Not now.
Not ever. Alara's heart hammered in her chest. She didn't know if she should feel protected or terrified. Maybe both. 3 days passed like a slow torture. Alara was given everything. Beautiful dresses, jewelry, servants who called her lady, and bowed when she walked past. She had freedom to roam the castle grounds, access to the royal library, meals that would have fed her old pack for a week. Everything except answers. Kale was everywhere and nowhere. She'd catch glimpses of him in the hallways, surrounded by advisors. She'd hear his voice from behind closed doors, arguing with the council. But whenever she tried to approach him, to demand an explanation for why he destroyed both their lives, he was already gone. On the fourth morning, Alara found herself in the castle gardens, desperate for air that didn't feel suffocating. The roses were in full bloom, their scent almost overwhelming. Well, well, the future Luna, wandering alone. Alara spun around. 3 women stood behind her, all dressed in expensive gowns that screamed old money and older bloodlines. The one in the center, a stunning blonde with ice-blue eyes, smiled, but it didn't reach her face. "I'm Vivian Silvercrest," the blonde said. "Alpha Dane's daughter. You know, the one Lady Seraphine mentioned? The suitable match." Alara's stomach dropped. "I didn't ask for any of this." "Oh, we know," one of the other girls, a redhead with sharp features, laughed. "Everyone knows you're just a convenient womb. The king needs heirs, and apparently, the moon goddess told him you'd produce strong ones. That's all you are. An incubator." The words hit like physical blows. Alara had suspected, had feared, but hearing it said so bluntly. "That's not," she started, but her voice cracked. "Not what?" Vivian stepped closer, her wolf eyes gleaming with barely contained aggression. "Not true? Please. Why else would he choose you? You have no power, no status, no pack standing. The only thing you're good for is breeding. And once you've given him an heir," she leaned in, her voice dropping to a cruel whisper, "he'll discard you, keep you locked away while he takes a real Luna. Someone worthy." Alara's hands trembled. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but the truth was, she didn't know if they were wrong. "Leave her alone." The voice was male, authoritative, but not Kale's. A young man approached, maybe mid-20s, with kind brown eyes and the bearing of a trained warrior. The 3 women immediately stepped back, bowing their heads slightly. "Captain Dorian," Vivian said sweetly, her whole demeanor changing. "We were just welcoming the king's choice." I'm sure Dorian's expression made it clear he'd heard everything. "I believe you ladies have appointments elsewhere. The Queen Mother requested your presence, didn't she?" It was clearly a dismissal. Vivian's smile turned poisonous, but she and her friends retreated, throwing dark looks at Alara over their shoulders. "Thank you," Alara breathed once they were gone. Dorian smiled gently. "Don't let them get to you. They're just jealous." Of what? The bitterness escaped before she could stop it. Of being used? Of being hated by everyone in this castle? "Is that what you think?" Dorian studied her carefully. "That the king is using you? What else am I supposed to think?" Alara's frustration finally boiled over. "He won't talk to me. Won't explain anything. He just declared me his mate in front of everyone and then abandoned me to deal with the consequences. Everyone whispers when I walk by. The servants pity me. The nobles mock me. And he's nowhere to be found." Dorian's expression turned sympathetic. "The king is dealing with a lot of pressure right now. So am I." Alara's voice rose. "I lost everything. My pack, my brother, not that he was much, but he was family. My entire life was destroyed in 5 minutes, and I don't even know why. All Kale says is that my destiny is greater than I know. What does that even mean?" She was breathing hard, tears threatening to fall. She'd held it together for days, but the dam was finally breaking. "I'm sorry," Dorian said quietly. "You're right. You deserve answers. But I won't get them, will I? Because the great Alpha King doesn't have to explain himself to a worthless Omega." "You're not worthless." The voice came from behind her. Alara whirled around. Kale stood at the garden entrance, his face unreadable. How much had he heard? Dorian bowed quickly. "Your Majesty, I was just leaving." "Thank you, Captain." Kale's eyes never left Alara's face. Dorian hesitated, glancing at Alara with concern, but ultimately retreated, leaving them alone. The silence stretched. A bird sang somewhere in the roses. Water trickled from a nearby fountain, and Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. "How long have you been standing there?" she finally asked. "Long enough." Kale moved closer, his hands clasped behind his back. "You're angry." "I'm lost." The tears she'd been fighting finally spilled over. "Everyone thinks I'm just just breeding stock. A vessel for your heirs. And you won't tell me anything different. Won't tell me anything at all. I've told you what I can. That's not enough. Alara's fists clenched. You turned my entire existence upside down. The least you could do is tell me why. Really why? Not some cryptic nonsense about destiny. Kale's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might actually explain. Might finally give her something real. Instead, he said, I can't. Not yet. Why not? Because you're not ready to hear it. The condescension in his tone snapped something inside her. Don't treat me like a child. I've survived 22 years as a wolfless Omega in a world that wanted me dead. I think I can handle whatever truth you're hiding. Can you? Kale's eyes flashed gold. Can you handle knowing that everything you've believed about yourself is a lie? That your weakness wasn't an accident? That there are forces at play you can't begin to understand? Alara stared at him. What are you talking about? See. Kale turned away, running a hand through his dark hair in frustration. You ask for truth, but you're not ready for it. None of this will make sense until… Until what? Until I magically transform into someone worthy? Until I fulfill whatever prophecy you're obsessed with. Alara's voice broke. I'm not some fantasy creature from your visions. I'm just me. Broken, powerless me. And if that's not enough, if I'm really just here to give you children and nothing more, then just say it. Stop pretending this is anything other than what everyone says it is. Kale spun back to face her, and for the first time, she saw raw emotion crack through his controlled exterior. Frustration, desperation, and something else, something that looked almost like fear. You think I chose this? His voice was rough. You think I wanted to risk everything, my throne, my alliances, my entire kingdom, for a political breeding arrangement? I could have married any alpha's daughter and secured those things easily. Then why didn't you? Because they're not you. The words hung between them, loaded with meaning Alara couldn't quite grasp. Kale took a breath, clearly fighting to regain control. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more measured. There are things happening, Alara. Things I can't explain without putting you in more danger than you're already in. The council is watching. The rival packs are watching. And there are others, darker forces, who would kill you in a heartbeat if they knew what you really are. I don't even know what I really am, Alara whispered. I know something that might have been regret crossed Kale's face. And I wish I could tell you everything. But until the awakening, until you're strong enough to protect yourself, the less you know, the safer you are. I don't feel safe. I feel like a prisoner in a gilded cage. I'm sorry, and he actually sounded like he meant it. But it's the only way. Trust me, Alara. Just a little longer. Trust you. Alara laughed bitterly. I don't even know you. You will. After the full moon, everything will change. Before she could respond, a guard appeared at the garden entrance, bowing quickly. Your Majesty, urgent message from the Border Patrol. They're requesting your immediate presence. Kale's expression hardened instantly, the vulnerable moment gone. He gave Alara one last look, apologetic, frustrated, unreadable, and then he was gone again. Leaving her standing alone in the roses, with more questions than ever and the sinking certainty that she was nothing more than a pawn in a game whose rules she'd never understand. The tavern sat on the border between packed territories, neutral ground where questions weren't asked and loyalty was measured in gold, not blood. Marcus pulled his hood lower as he entered, the stench of cheap alcohol and unwashed wolves hitting him immediately. He'd lost everything because of that worthless sister of his. The mining colony deal alone would have netted him $50,000. He'd already spent half of it in his mind, a new house, a higher rank in the pack hierarchy, maybe even a shot at Beta Prime.
But no.
The freak had somehow caught the Alpha King's eye, and now Marcus was a laughingstock. The Beta whose Omega sister became a queen. People whispered it with amusement, not respect. As if Alara's rise elevated him. It didn't. It destroyed him. His pack barely acknowledged him now, waiting to see if he'd gain influence through her or be exposed as the failure he was. "You're late." The voice came from a dark corner booth. Marcus's wolf instinct screamed danger, but he forced himself to walk forward calmly. Alpha Cyrus sat in shadow, but his presence was unmistakable. He ruled the Blood Moon Pack, the largest rival to Kale's kingdom. Massive, scarred, with eyes that glowed red even in human form. Rumor said he'd killed his own father to take power. Rumor also said he'd been waiting for any excuse to challenge Kale's rule. "Had to be careful," Marcus said, sliding into the booth. "The king has eyes everywhere." "Does he now?" Cyrus leaned forward, his scarred face catching the dim light. A jagged mark ran from his temple to his jaw, a reminder of some past battle. "Then perhaps you shouldn't have come at all. Unless you have something worth my time." Marcus swallowed his fear. "I do. Information about the king's choice." Cyrus's lip curled. "The defective Omega? Everyone's heard about that disaster. The entire supernatural community is laughing. Kale's lost his mind, choosing some powerless girl over alliances that could have secured his reign for generations." "That's exactly why you need to listen," Marcus leaned in, lowering his voice. "She's my sister. I know everything about her. Every weakness. Every vulnerability. And I know she's making the king vulnerable too." Interest flickered in Cyrus's red eyes. "Go on." "The council is furious. They're talking about a vote of no confidence. The packs are withdrawing support. Kale's thrown away decades of careful alliance building for nothing." Marcus couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "My sister can't fight.
Can't shift.
Can barely walk across a room without tripping. She's a liability, and everyone knows it." "Then why did he choose her?" "I don't know. Some vision, supposedly. The moon goddess or some mystical nonsense," Marcus waved dismissively. "But here's what matters. She's completely unprotected. Vulnerable. And Kale is so obsessed with whatever prophecy he thinks she fulfills that he's neglecting actual security." Cyrus studied him carefully. "What exactly are you offering, Beta Marcus?" This was it. The moment Marcus either secured his future or signed his death warrant. "I can get you inside information. Palace layouts. Guard rotations. And most importantly," he paused for effect, "access to Alara. During the Blood Moon ritual next week, security will be focused on the ceremony. The East Wing will be understaffed. If someone wanted to demonstrate exactly how weak the king's choice really is." "You're talking about kidnapping the future Luna." Cyrus's tone was unreadable. "I'm talking about exposing the truth. That she's not fit to rule. That Kale's judgment is compromised. That his kingdom is vulnerable." Marcus's hands clenched under the table.
Take her.
"Prove she's powerless. Show the packs that their king has made a fatal mistake. They'll turn on him. The council will have no choice but to remove him. And what do you get out of this betrayal, I wonder?" Marcus met Cyrus's red gaze steadily. "When Kale falls, someone will need to fill the power vacuum. You'll need allies who know the inner workings of his territory. I want a position in your court, Beta Prime. And I want to be there when my sister realizes she never should have been chosen in the first place." The silence stretched. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, could smell his own nervous sweat. If Cyrus rejected him, Marcus was as good as dead. He knew too much now, had shown his hand too clearly. Finally, Cyrus smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "You know what I like about desperate men, Marcus? They're useful. Predictable. Easy to control." He pulled out a leather pouch and dropped it on the table with a heavy clink. "Initial payment. 5,000. You'll get the rest when you deliver what you promised." Marcus grabbed the pouch, relief flooding through him. "The ritual is in 5 days. I'll get you the palace security details by tomorrow night. Guard positions, patrol schedules, everything. And the Omega? You're certain you can arrange access?" "She trusts no one in that castle."
"But she knows me."
"And she's stupid enough to think family still means something." Marcus's lip curled. "I'll make sure she's exactly where you need her to be." Cyrus stood, his massive frame making the small booth look like a child's toy. A word of warning, Beta. If you're playing me, if this is some elaborate loyalty test from your king, they will never find enough of you to bury. It's not. Marcus stood too, though he barely reached Cyrus's shoulder. I hate her. I hate what she's done to my life. And I hate that someone so worthless gets everything while people like me get nothing. Good. Hate makes men reliable. Cyrus moved toward the exit, then paused. One more thing. When we take her, what she experiences, it won't be pleasant. We need to break her publicly. Prove she's not Luna material. Can you live with that? Knowing what will happen to your own blood. Marcus didn't hesitate. She's not my blood. Not anymore. She's just another obstacle to remove. Cyrus nodded, satisfied. Then we have a deal. 5 days, Marcus.
Don't disappoint me.
When the alpha was gone, Marcus sat back down, his hands shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. He poured himself a drink from the abandoned glass on the table and downed it in one gulp. Somewhere in the royal castle, Alara was probably crying into her silk pillows, overwhelmed by her impossible situation. She probably thought she was suffering. She had no idea what real suffering was. But she would soon. And Marcus would make sure he had a front-row seat to watch her perfect little world crumble. After all, that's what family was for. He ordered another drink and began sketching the palace layout from memory, marking weak points and guard rotations. By the time the blood moon rose, Cale would realize exactly what a mistake he'd made. And Marcus would finally get what he deserved. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Inside, betrayal took root, spreading like poison through carefully laid plans. The full moon was 5 days away. 5 days until everything changed. 5 days until Alara learned that even in a castle surrounded by guards and luxury, she was never truly safe. Because the greatest danger always came from those who were supposed to protect you. The blood moon ritual was supposed to be sacred, a celebration of the moon goddess, where pack members gathered under the crimson lunar eclipse to renew their bonds and strengthen their connection to their wolves. Alara had been dreading it for days. The ceremony took place in the ancient stone circle at the heart of the royal grounds. Hundreds of wolves gathered in their finest clothes, the air thick with anticipation and power. Alara stood near the front in a white ceremonial dress that made her feel even more exposed than usual. Everyone could see she didn't belong. Cale was at the center of the circle, leading the ritual alongside the pack elders. His voice carried across the gathering, speaking words in the old language that made Alara's skin prickle. For a moment, she felt something, a pull, deep in her chest, like an invisible string tugging at something dormant inside her. Then Marcus appeared at her elbow. Hey, sis, his smile didn't reach his eyes. You look pale. Are you feeling all right? Alara stiffened. They hadn't spoken since the moon gathering. I'm fine. You don't look fine. Maybe you need some air? The East Garden is quiet. No one would bother you there. Every instinct told her not to trust him. But the crowd was pressing in, the ritual chanting growing louder, and she genuinely felt like she couldn't breathe. The stone circle suddenly felt suffocating. Just for a few minutes, Marcus urged. I'll make sure no one notices you're gone. You don't want to pass out in front of everyone, do you? The thought of collapsing during the sacred ritual, of embarrassing Cale further, made her decision for her. Okay, just for a minute. Marcus led her away from the crowd, through the torchlit paths toward the quieter eastern section of the grounds. The chanting faded behind them. Alara's unease grew with every step. Marcus, this is far enough. Almost there, his grip on her arm tightened. Too tight. Just a bit further. Alarm bells screamed in her head. Let go. They rounded a corner, and Alara's blood turned to ice. Cyrus stood in the shadows with a dozen of his warriors, their eyes glowing red in the darkness. The Blood Moon Pack. Here. On royal grounds. No. Alara tried to pull away, but Marcus's grip was iron. Sorry, sis, his voice was cold.
Empty.
But you ruined my life. Fair's fair. He shoved her forward. Alara stumbled, and before she could scream, rough hands grabbed her. A cloth pressed against her mouth, some kind of sedative that made her vision blur immediately. Perfect timing, Beta Marcus, Cyrus's scarred face loomed over her. Your payment will be in your account by morning. Marcus didn't even look at her as he walked away. Her own brother. Selling her out for money. The last thing Alara saw before darkness claimed her was the blood-red moon hanging in the sky like an omen. She woke to pain. Her head throbbed, her wrists were bound with silver-laced rope that burned her skin, and she was kneeling on rough stone. Voices surrounded her, laughing, jeering voices. Look at her. This is what the great Alpha King chose. She's pathetic. Can't even hold her head up. Alara forced her eyes open. She was in some kind of warehouse, dim and cold. Around her stood dozens of Blood Moon Pack members, their faces twisted with contempt and amusement. And directly in front of her, seated on a makeshift throne like some kind of conquering warlord, was Cyrus. Welcome back, little Omega, his voice echoed off the concrete walls. I hope the journey wasn't too uncomfortable. Alara's throat was raw. Where? You're in Blood Moon territory now. Far from your precious king. Far from anyone who might save you, Cyrus stood, descending from his throne with predatory grace. Do you know why you're here? She didn't answer. Couldn't. You're here to prove a point, Cyrus circled her slowly. The entire supernatural world is watching your pathetic excuse for a king make a fool of himself. Choosing you, a worthless, powerless Omega, over daughters of powerful alphas. Over alliances that could have secured peace for generations. He grabbed her chin roughly, forcing her to look at him. So, I'm going to show them exactly what you are. Nothing. A liability. A weakness that will destroy Kale's reign. He'll come for me, Alara whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Cyrus laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. Will he? How many times has he come to see you this week? How many times has he explained why he chose you? You're not his mate, girl. You're his breeding stock. A means to an end. And when I'm done proving you're worthless, his own council will demand he cast you aside. He released her face and addressed his pack. Kale's reign is crumbling. His alliances are breaking. His council questions his every decision. And all because of this. He gestured dismissively at Alara. This defective creature he's foolishly tried to make a Luna. The pack roared their approval, their bloodlust palpable. Alara's heart hammered. She tried to summon something, anything. Her wolf, dormant all her life. Some hidden power Kale kept insisting she had. But there was nothing. Just fear and pain and the crushing realization that maybe everyone was right about her. Let's send the king a message, shall we? Cyrus pulled out a phone, pointing it at Alara. Smile for the camera, Omega. The whole kingdom is about to see exactly what their future Luna looks like on her knees. Back at the royal grounds, chaos erupted the moment Alara's absence was discovered. Kale had sensed something wrong mid-ritual, a sharp, painful tug in his chest that made him stop speaking the sacred words. His eyes had scanned the crowd frantically until he realized she was gone. Within minutes, guards were searching everywhere. Within an hour, they found the sedative cloth in the East Garden. And within 2 hours, Cyrus's message arrived, a video of Alara bound and broken, with the Blood Moon Alpha's mocking voice declaring that Kale's reign was over. The council convened immediately in the throne room, their faces grim and furious. This is what your obsession has brought us. Elder Thorn's voice shook with rage. An enemy pack has breached our territory, kidnapped your so-called Luna, and is now openly challenging your authority. All because you refuse to listen to reason. We need to respond with military force, Commander Brass demanded. Full-scale assault on Blood Moon territory. No, Lady Seraphine's voice cut through the arguments. That's exactly what Cyrus wants. He's baiting us into a war we're not prepared for. Not with our alliances in shambles. Kale stood at the window, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. Every instinct screamed at him to tear the world apart to find her. But his council's voices swirled around him, each one another nail in his coffin. "You must let her go, Your Majesty." Thorn's voice was almost gentle now. "Marry someone suitable. Restore stability. The girl is already lost." "She's not lost," Kale's voice was deadly quiet. "She's in enemy territory, surrounded by a hostile pack, and we have no leverage." "I said she's not lost." Kale turned, and his eyes blazed pure gold, his wolf completely surfaced. "And I'm going to get her back." "At what cost?" Lady Seraphine demanded. "Your throne? Your kingdom? How many lives are you willing to sacrifice for one powerless Omega?" "All of them." The council fell silent, shocked by the raw declaration. "You've gone mad," Thorn whispered. Perhaps Kale moved toward the door, his decision made. "But that Omega is mine. And anyone, enemy or ally, who thinks they can take her from me is about to learn exactly why I'm called the Alpha King." He left the council chamber, their protests fading behind him. The hunt had begun. Kale stood alone in the royal armory, strapping weapons to his body with practiced efficiency. A silver blade at his hip, wolfsbane darts in a hidden holster, a ceremonial dagger that had belonged to his father. "You can't be serious." Captain Dorian stood in the doorway, his face pale. "Your Majesty, this is suicide. Cyrus has 100 warriors. The Blood Moon territory is a fortress. You'll be walking into a trap." "I know." Kale checked his weapons one final time. "Then don't go. Let me take a strike team. We can infiltrate, extract her, and start a war that will kill thousands." Kale turned to face his captain. "Cyrus wants me to bring an army. He wants an excuse to unite the other packs against me. To prove I'm a warmonger who puts one Omega above peace. So, you'll give him what he really wants? Your head on a spike." "He won't kill me." Kale's voice was certain. "Not immediately. He wants to humiliate me first. Break me publicly. And that will give me the opening I need." Dorian shook his head in disbelief. "You're gambling your life on a theory." "I'm gambling on something more important than that." Kale moved past him toward the door. "Tell the council I've abdicated temporarily. Elder Thorn is in charge until I return. And if you don't return..." Kale paused. "Then you were right. And they should choose a king who listens to reason." He left before Dorian could protest further. The ride to Blood Moon territory took 3 hours. Kale went alone, on horseback, carrying a white flag of parley. Every mile, his wolf screamed at him to shift, to fight, to tear apart anyone who touched what was his. But he forced it down. Control. Strategy. That's what would save Alara. Not rage. Not power. Faith. When he reached the Blood Moon borders, scouts spotted him immediately. Within minutes, he was surrounded by 24 warriors, their weapons drawn and eyes glowing red. "The Alpha King," one of them sneered. "Come to beg for scraps." "I'm here to see Cyrus. He is something that belongs to me." They laughed, but they also escorted him because even they understood the significance of what was happening. An Alpha King, alone and unarmed in enemy territory, was either incredibly brave or fatally stupid. Maybe both. Alara had lost track of time in the cold warehouse. Hours? Days? Her wrists bled from the silver rope, her body ached from kneeling on stone, and her mind felt like it was fracturing under the constant mockery and threats. But something else was happening too. Something she couldn't explain. Every time they hurt her, every time Cyrus's wolves jeered or struck her, she felt something stirring deep inside. Like a sleeping giant turning in its slumber. Her skin would grow hot. Her vision would blur at the edges. And for just a second, she'd feel powerful. Then it would fade, leaving her weak and confused. "You're breaking nicely," Cyrus had said during one of his visits. "By the time Kale comes, if he comes, you'll be so shattered that even he'll see you're worthless." But Alara wasn't sure she was breaking. Something else was happening. Something that felt ancient and vast and terrifyingly close to the surface. The warehouse doors suddenly slammed open. Cyrus's beta rushed in, his face shocked. Alpha, the king is here. What? Cyrus stood abruptly. With how many warriors?
None.
He's alone. At the gates. Requesting parley. Silence fell over the warehouse. Even the cruelest wolves looked stunned. Cyrus's scarred face split into a savage grin. Alone? The fool actually came alone. He threw back his head and laughed. This is better than I imagined. Bring him to me. Let's show the mighty Alpha King what happens to wolves who value weakness over strength. Alara's heart lurched.
No.
He couldn't have. He wouldn't risk everything for her. Would he? Minutes later, the doors opened again. And Kale walked in. He looked calm, composed, his gray eyes sweeping the room until they found her. Something flickered in his expression. Relief, rage, pain, but it vanished quickly behind his alpha mask. Kale, Cyrus spread his arms wide in mock welcome. How generous of you to deliver yourself to me. I was going to have to work much harder to destroy you. Release her, Kale's voice carried absolute authority, even here, surrounded by enemies.
Now.
Or what? Cyrus circled him like a predator. You'll fight me? You, and what army? Oh wait, you didn't bring one, did you? You came alone. For her, he gestured dismissively at Alara. This powerless, worthless Omega that you've destroyed your kingdom over. She's worth more than your entire pack combined. The declaration echoed through the warehouse. Alara's breath caught. Cyrus's expression darkened. Brave words for a king who's about to die. You know what I think? I think the moon goddess cursed you with madness. Made you obsessed with something broken so your enemies could destroy you easily. The only one who's broken here is you. Kale's eyes flashed gold. A man so desperate for power that he'd kidnap an innocent girl. A man so weak that he needs 100 warriors to face one unarmed king. Rage contorted Cyrus's face. I'll show you weak. He lunged. But Kale was ready. Despite being unarmed, despite the odds, he fought like the warrior king he was. His movements were precise, brutal, efficient. He dodged Cyrus's first strike, landed a devastating blow to his ribs, and had a warrior in a chokehold before anyone could react. Chaos erupted. Warriors rushed forward, and Kale disappeared in a mass of bodies. No! Alara screamed, straining against her bonds. And something inside her cracked. Pain exploded through her body, worse than anything Cyrus had done to her. Her veins felt like they were on fire, her bones like they were reshaping themselves. The silver rope burned her wrists, but she didn't care. All she could see was Kale, fighting impossible odds, alone because of her. The strange power she'd felt stirring suddenly surged to the surface like a tidal wave. Her vision went white. When it cleared, the warehouse was silent. Every wolf had stopped fighting. They were all staring at her. Alara looked down and gasped. Her skin was glowing, a soft silver light that pulsed with each heartbeat. The silver rope that had bound her was melting, dissolving like ice under summer sun. And on her arms, spreading across her skin like living artwork, were marks she'd never seen before. Ancient symbols that seemed to writhe and shift in the light. The mark of the moon goddess. Impossible, Cyrus whispered, his red eyes wide with something that looked like fear. She's mine, Kale finished, wiping blood from his lip. Despite being outnumbered and beaten, he was smiling. I told you. You just couldn't see it yet. The power radiating from Alara grew stronger. She could feel it now, not as a foreign presence, but as part of herself. Something that had always been there, just waiting for the right moment to wake up. The moment when she had something worth fighting for. Alara stood, the silver rope falling away completely. Every wolf in the room, including Cyrus, instinctively took a step back. Let him go, she said, and her voice echoed with ancient authority.
Now.
The warriors holding Kale released him immediately, unable to resist the command. Cyrus's face twisted with fury and disbelief. What are you? Alara didn't know the answer. But as she looked at Kale, bloodied, defiant, having risked everything for her, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was done being weak. The silver glow around Alara intensified, growing brighter until it filled the entire warehouse. Wolves shielded their eyes, unable to look directly at her. The ancient marks on her skin pulsed like a living heartbeat, spreading across her arms, her shoulders, her neck. "What's happening to her?" one of Cyrus's warriors whispered, fear clear in his voice. Kale knew. He'd seen this in his visions 100 times. The awakening. The moment when destiny finally revealed itself. "She's becoming what she was always meant to be," Kale said softly, awe clear in his voice. Cyrus snarled, his pride overriding his fear. "I don't care what parlor tricks she's learned. She's still just an Omega." He shifted partially, his body rippling with muscle and fur, claws extending. "And you, Kale, are still a fool." He launched himself at the Alpha King with supernatural speed. But Alara moved faster. She didn't think, just reacted. Power surged through her veins like liquid moonlight, and she thrust her hand forward. A wave of silver energy exploded from her palm, hitting Cyrus mid-leap and sending him crashing into the concrete wall 20 feet away. The impact left a crater. Cyrus slumped to the ground, dazed and bleeding. Alara stared at her hands, shocked. I didn't know I could." "You can do much more than that." Kale moved to her side, his presence steadying her. "Don't fight it. Let it flow through you." Cyrus struggled to his feet, his red eyes blazing with fury and humiliation. "You think one lucky shot changes anything? You're still outnumbered. Warriors, kill them both." But none of his pack moved. They were all staring at Alara, their wolves recognizing something their human minds couldn't quite comprehend. Primal instinct warred with learned loyalty, and instinct was winning. "I gave you an order," Cyrus roared. The nearest warrior took a hesitant step forward, raising his weapon, and Alara's eyes flashed pure silver. The power erupted again, but this time it wasn't violent. It was a presence, vast, ancient, undeniable. The mark of the moon goddess blazed on Alara's skin, and suddenly the warehouse was filled with the scent of moonflowers and winter frost. The air itself seemed to hum with divine energy. One by one, every wolf in the room dropped to their knees. Not by choice, by instinct, by the fundamental recognition that they were in the presence of something sacred, something chosen by the moon goddess herself. Even Cyrus felt it. His knees trembled, his proud alpha blood warring against the divine command radiating from Alara. He fought it with everything he had, muscles straining, teeth bared in defiance. "I will not kneel," he gasped. Alara walked toward him slowly, and with each step, the power around her intensified. She didn't understand it fully, but she could feel the truth of it now. This had always been inside her. Not hidden, not locked away. Waiting. Waiting for the moment when she stopped seeing herself as weak and started seeing herself as she truly was. "You will kneel," Alara said, her voice carrying harmonics that weren't quite human. "Because the moon goddess commands it. Because I am her chosen. And because your pride has blinded you to what really matters." Cyrus's legs buckled. With a howl of rage and despair, the mighty Blood Moon Alpha crashed to his knees before the Omega he'd called worthless. Silence blanketed the warehouse. Even the sound of breathing seemed muted. Kale watched, his chest tight with emotions he couldn't name.
Pride.
Relief.
Awe.
And something deeper, the recognition that he'd been right all along, even when everyone doubted him. She wasn't chosen because she was strong. She became strong because she was chosen. "I should kill you," Alara said to Cyrus, her voice steady.
"For what you did to me."
"For what you planned to do. For the betrayal you represent." Cyrus's scarred face twisted with hatred even as he knelt. "Then do it. Prove you're as monstrous as the rest of us." Alara stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned away.
No.
I'm not like you. And I never will be. She looked at the kneeling warriors around the room. But know this, all of you. If you ever threaten my king, my pack, or innocent wolves again, the moon goddess's mercy will not save you. I will. The threat hung in the air, all the more terrifying for being delivered in such a calm tone. Kale stepped forward, addressing Cyrus. Your pack is forfeit. Your territory will be absorbed into the kingdom. And you, his gray eyes flashed gold, will spend the rest of your days in a silver cage, thinking about what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. This isn't over, Cyrus spat. Other packs will come. Other enemies. They'll all see her as a threat now, not a weakness. You've painted a target on both your backs. Let them come, Kale's smile was sharp. They'll kneel just like you did. He turned to Alara, his expression softening. Can you walk? The adrenaline was fading, and Alara suddenly felt the weight of what had happened. The power was still there, humming under her skin, but she was exhausted. I think so. Kale moved to support her, his arm around her waist. The contact sent warmth through her, steadying and real. The marks, she whispered, looking at her glowing skin. What do they mean? They mean you were never broken, Kale's voice was gentle. You were dormant. Your wolf wasn't absent. It was waiting for your human spirit to be strong enough to contain your true power. The moon goddess doesn't choose the strong, Alara. She chooses those with the strength to become what's needed. Tears pricked Alara's eyes. You knew. All this time, you knew what I was. I knew what you would become. I just had to wait for you to discover it yourself. He pressed his forehead to hers briefly. I'm sorry it took this. I'm sorry you had to suffer. But some truths can only be learned through fire. Around them, the Blood Moon warriors remained kneeling, uncertain and awed. What happens now? Alara asked. Kale pulled back, his expression hardening as the Alpha King returned. Now? Now we go home. And we show your brother exactly what happens to traitors. The mention of Marcus made Alara's chest tighten, not with sadness, but with anger. Her own blood had sold her out, had put her in this position. That would be answered for. And the council? She asked quietly. Kale's smile turned fierce. The council is about to learn that their king doesn't make mistakes. He sees destinies they're too blind to recognize. He swept Alara into his arms, carrying her toward the warehouse exit. Behind them, Captain Dorian and a strike team burst through the doors. They'd followed at a distance, ready to intervene if needed. Your Majesty. Dorian's eyes widened at the sight of the kneeling Blood Moon pack. What? Secure Cyrus and his lieutenants, Kale commanded. The rest can swear loyalty to the crown or face exile. Their choice. As they left the warehouse, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. The blood moon had passed, replaced by the gentle light of a new day. Alara looked up at Kale's face, seeing determination and something else. Something that looked like devotion. Thank you, she whispered, for coming for me, for believing in me when no one else did. Always, Kale promised. You're not just my Luna, Alara. You're my destiny, and I will burn the world down before I let anyone harm you again. The journey home had begun, and waiting at its end was a reckoning that would change everything. The grand hall fell silent as the massive doors opened. Every noble, every council member, every alpha who'd mocked and doubted, they all turned to stare. Word had spread quickly. The king had returned. The Omega had awakened. And nothing would ever be the same. Alara walked beside Kale, no longer needing his support. The silver marks still glowed faintly on her skin, visible even through the borrowed cloak Dorian had given her. Her head was high, her steps steady. She was done cowering. The council sat in their elevated positions, their faces ranging from shocked to suspicious to, in Elder Thorn's case, something that might have been relief. But it was her brother's face that captured Alara's attention. Marcus stood near the back of the hall, his expression frozen between disbelief and terror. When their eyes met, he actually stumbled backward, fear rolling off him in waves. "The council will come to order." Cale's voice rang out with absolute authority. Elder Thorne stood slowly. "Your Majesty, we're relieved you've returned safely. The reports we've received are difficult to believe." "Then believe your eyes," Cale gestured to Alara. "The Omega you dismissed as worthless just brought the Blood Moon Pack to their knees. Literally." Cyrus himself bowed before her power. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Lady Seraphine leaned forward, her sharp eyes examining Alara with new interest. "The marks. Those are genuine? The moon goddess's blessing?" "See for yourself." Alara let the cloak fall from her shoulders. The silver marks blazed brighter in response to the scrutiny, ancient symbols writhing across her skin like living art. Several nobles gasped. One actually dropped to one knee instinctively before catching himself. "Impossible," Commander Brass breathed. "She had no wolf. No power." "How?" "Because you were looking at what she was, not what she was meant to become." Cale's voice carried both reproach and triumph. "I told you all. She was chosen. Not by me. By destiny itself." Elder Thorne's expression shifted, calculation replacing doubt. "If this is true, if she truly bears the goddess's mark, then this changes everything." The prophecies spoke of a Luna who would rise from weakness, who would unite the packs not through bloodline, but through divine right. "Prophecies you all dismissed as legend," Cale reminded him coldly. "We were wrong." The admission clearly pained Thorne, but he said it anyway. "I was wrong. The kingdom owes you, both of you, an apology." "The kingdom owes us more than that." Cale's gray eyes swept the assembly. "It owes us loyalty,
Trust.
and an end to the whispers and schemes that have plagued us since the moon gathering." His gaze landed on Marcus, who had been trying to edge toward the exit.
Guards.
"Seize Beta Marcus of Riverbend." Marcus ran, or tried to. Captain Dorian and two warriors blocked his path, grabbing him before he made it 3 steps. They dragged him to the center of the hall, forcing him to his knees. "Your Majesty, I can explain," Marcus started, his voice desperate. "Explain how you sold out your own sister?" Cale's voice dropped to a lethal growl. "How you took gold from our enemies to betray the kingdom. How you provided palace security details and arranged for Alara's kidnapping." The hall erupted in shocked outrage. Even those who doubted Alara looked horrified at the betrayal. Marcus's face crumbled. "She ruined everything. She was supposed to be nothing, and instead she became everything." Alara stepped forward, looking down at the brother who tormented her all her life. "You sold me for $50,000, Marcus. You thought I was worthless. But the truth is, you never knew my worth because you were too busy measuring it against your own inadequacy." Marcus flinched as if she'd struck him. "You wanted me to be nothing so you could be something," Alara continued, her voice steady and sure. "But that's not how worth works. I don't need to diminish you to rise. I just need to stop letting you diminish me." She turned to Cale. "What happens to him is your decision, Your Majesty. He betrayed your kingdom, not just me." Cale studied Marcus with cold calculation. "The penalty for treason is death. But I think a more fitting punishment awaits you in the labor camps you were so eager to send your sister to. 50 years. No parole. No privileges. You wanted to profit from weakness? Now you'll learn what true weakness feels like." Marcus's face went white. "Please. Take him away." Cale dismissed him with a wave. As guards dragged Marcus from the hall, his pleas echoing off the stone walls, no one moved to help him. Silence fell again.
Heavier now.
Weighted with the reality of what had transpired. Cale turned to face the council, his hand extending toward Alara. "I told you all at the moon gathering. I need a Luna. You need strong children. You thought I was speaking of alliances and bloodlines. But I was speaking of something far more important." He pulled Alara to his side, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "This is no bargain of blood. This is fate. The moon goddess herself chose this woman, not for her power, but for her spirit. Not for her connections, but for her destiny. She will be your Luna. She will bear the next generation of kings. And she will lead this kingdom into an era of strength you cannot yet imagine. Elder Thorn stood, and one by one, the other council members rose with him. Then, in a gesture that shocked everyone, Thorn knelt. Luna Alera, he said formally, the council recognizes your divine right. We pledge our loyalty and service. Like a wave, the entire assembly dropped to their knees. Nobles, warriors, servants. Everyone bowed before the Omega who'd become a queen. Tears stung Alera's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, she stood tall, feeling the weight of destiny settle on her shoulders like a crown. Rise, she said, her voice carrying the harmonics of divine authority. And know that I will serve this kingdom with everything I am, not because I was chosen, but because I choose to be worthy of that choice. As the assembly rose, Kale leaned close, his voice meant only for her. Are you ready for this? For everything it means? Alera looked into his gray eyes, the eyes that had seen her worth when everyone else saw weakness. I've spent my whole life being told I wasn't enough. I'm done believing them.
So yes.
I'm ready. Kale's smile was genuine, warm, and full of promise. Then welcome home, Luna. Your reign begins now. The grand hall erupted in cheers, genuine this time, not mocking. And as Alera stood beside her king, surrounded by wolves who finally saw her, she realized something profound.
She hadn't changed.
She'd always been this person.
Strong. Worthy.
Powerful. She just needed the right moment and the right person to help her remember. The weak Omega was gone. The true Luna had risen. And the kingdom would never be the same.